It was a calm Saturday evening in the small town of Fairfield, Connecticut. The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with orange, pink, and soft purple. Kids laughed as they kicked soccer balls across the park. Teenagers sat on benches, sharing snacks and music. Parents stood nearby, chatting with friends, some sipping coffee. Everything felt safe, everything felt normal, but not for Daniel. He was 16, tall and calm, with neat black hair and eyes that always seemed to be thinking. Unlike the others, Daniel wasn't there to play. He wore a clean black suit and shiny shoes, not because he liked showing off, but because that's just who he was. Polite, serious, strong. He sat under a big oak tree with a thick book in his hands, but he wasn't really reading. He was waiting for someone. His little brother Eli, who had soccer practice nearby. Daniel had made a promise. "I'll walk you home, no matter what," he told Eli that morning, and Daniel kept his promises. The cool wind brushed through the trees as he flipped another page. The world felt quiet until, vroom! A loud sound broke through the peaceful air. Motorcycles, 5 of them, big, loud, and scary. People turned their heads. Some children stopped playing. The bikes rolled in fast and parked right near the field. The riders got off, men in black leather jackets with tattoos, heavy boots, and hard eyes that didn't smile. Daniel watched them quietly. Most bikers just drove by. These didn't. One of them, a big man with a shaved head and a heavy beard, kept looking right at Daniel. Daniel's heart beat faster, but he didn't move. He remembered what his mother always said, "Never let them see you sweat." The big man whispered something to the others. Then 3 of them started walking, straight toward Daniel. Daniel closed his book. He placed it gently beside him, and then he waited. The heavy man stopped in front of him. He had a deep voice like thunder. "What are you doing here, kid?" he asked. Daniel looked up calmly. "Waiting for my brother," the man sneered. "Doesn't look like your kind of place." Daniel didn't frown. He didn't shout. "It's a public park," he said softly. That made the man's face tighten. 2 other bikers stepped closer, making a half circle around him. They were trying to scare him, trying to trap him. But Daniel didn't get up. He didn't run. You see, Daniel had trained in karate for years, not to fight, but to learn how not to, how to be strong in his mind, how to stay balanced. But now, the balance was shaking. One of the bikers leaned close. "Scared?" he asked with a smirk. Daniel didn't answer. Then suddenly came a voice, a small, brave voice. "Leave him alone." It was Eli, just 9 years old, holding his soccer ball tight. He had run over from the field when he saw the men surrounding his brother. The bikers turned and laughed. "This your brother?" one of them asked. "Maybe we should teach both of you a lesson." Daniel's calm face became serious. He stood up slowly. His black suit moved with him like a shadow. "Don't touch him," he said. His voice was low but full of fire. The leader laughed. "Look at this guy, thinks he's a hero." The others chuckled, but something was changing. Daniel's stillness, his quiet confidence. It made them nervous. One biker stepped forward and said, "You're not gonna do anything." Daniel looked at Eli, then back at the biker. "You don't want to do this," he said, his voice steady. The man reached out to shove him, but then, snap. In one swift move, Daniel twisted the biker's wrist and pushed him away. The man stumbled back in pain, eyes wide with shock. Another biker threw a punch. Daniel ducked and kicked the man's leg hard. The biker fell with a loud thud. The 3rd man rushed in, but Daniel spun around and kicked him straight in the stomach. Now only the leader remained. He growled and charged. But Daniel didn't hit back. He moved like water, dodging every punch, every swing. He wasn't fighting to hurt. He was moving to protect. A crowd was forming. People gasped. Some filmed with their phones. Finally, the biker tried to grab Daniel's suit. Daniel twisted away and gave him a clean, focused hit to the chest. The biker froze. Wind knocked out of him. Daniel raised his voice just a little. Enough. Walk away. The biker looked around. His men were groaning on the grass. He gave Daniel one last angry glare. This ain't over, he hissed before turning to leave. The others limped back to their bikes, and just like that they were gone. Silence. Then clap, clap, clap. Applause broke out. Daniel didn't smile. He just turned to Eli and said, "Are you okay?" Eli nodded quickly. "Are you okay?" Daniel smiled softly. "I'm fine. Let's go home." As they walked, Eli looked up at his brother. "How did you do all that?" he asked. Daniel thought for a second. "It's not about being strong, Eli. It's about staying calm and knowing when to act." Eli nodded slowly, but then he whispered, "What if they come back?" Daniel stopped walking. He looked Eli straight in the eyes. "If they do, we'll handle it. But today wasn't about fighting. It was about standing up for what's right. And fighting should always be the last choice." The next day was Sunday. Church bells rang across Fairfield. Birds chirped. The town was quiet again. But inside Daniel's house, things were not calm. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, a cold pack on his hand. It was a little swollen from the fight. His mother, Mrs. Owens, stood in front of him with folded arms, her eyebrows tight with worry. "You could have been arrested, Daniel," she said. "I told you, no fighting." Daniel looked down. "I didn't start it, Mom." Eli sat beside him, fidgeting. "He was just protecting me," Eli said quickly. Mrs. Owens sighed. She wasn't angry because of what Daniel did. She was scared. She was a mother watching her son step into a dangerous world, and she knew sometimes the world wasn't fair. "Baby, you have to be careful," she said gently. "They could have hurt you, or worse." Daniel finally looked up. "I know, but I couldn't let them scare us." His mother stared at him for a long time, then sat down. She took his hand softly. "Your father would be proud," she whispered. Daniel's heart squeezed. His father had passed away 2 years ago. A police officer, brave, honest, strong. Daniel still remembered his last words. "Protect your family, but with wisdom, not fists." And Daniel tried. That evening, something strange happened. Daniel got a message on his phone. It was from an unknown number. "You think you're a hero. You messed with the wrong people." Then another one. "Better watch your back." Daniel's fingers tightened around the phone. Eli saw his face. "What's wrong?" Daniel quickly smiled. "Nothing. Just junk messages." But it wasn't nothing. The biker gang hadn't let go. They were angry, embarrassed, looking for payback. Daniel didn't tell his mom. He didn't want to worry her. He didn't tell the police. He didn't want to make things worse. Instead, he started walking Eli to school and back every day. Always alert, always watching. One afternoon, as they walked past a corner shop, Daniel noticed a man leaning against a wall. Same leather jacket, same boots, just staring. Daniel said nothing. He gently moved Eli to the other side of the sidewalk. That night, a rock flew through their window, shattered glass, screams. Eli hid under the table. Mrs. Owens held both boys close, shaking. Daniel looked out the window. No one there, just the sound of a motorcycle engine fading into the distance. The next day, Daniel made a decision. He walked into a local boxing gym, Coach Reggie's. Coach Reggie was a big man with kind eyes. He had trained men and women for years, but he also knew something most fighters didn't. Real strength wasn't in your fists, it was in your heart. Daniel stepped inside, shoulders firm. "I don't want to fight," he said. "I want to learn how to end fights before they start." Coach Reggie smiled slowly. "Then you've come to the right place." Days turned into weeks. Daniel trained hard, learning how to block, how to stay calm, how to read people's moves. Not to attack, but to defend. And Coach Reggie didn't just teach with gloves. He taught with words. "A real man knows when to walk away," he said, "and when to stand like a mountain." But while Daniel was growing stronger inside, the threats didn't stop. One afternoon, as Eli played near the park fountain, a black car pulled up slowly. The window rolled down. It was the gang leader. He smiled at Eli with sharp eyes. "Tell your brother we're just getting started," he said. Then he drove off. Eli ran straight to Daniel, crying. Daniel held him tight. He knew this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about family, about home, about everything they stood for. That night, Daniel made another decision. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to hide, but he also wasn't going to fight their way. He would use his brain. So he gathered every piece of information he had. He noted their bike model, license plates, and hangout spots. Then he met with an old friend of his, Father, Detective Marie Banks. He handed her everything. At first she was quiet, then she said, "You did all this yourself?" Daniel nodded. She looked at him closely. "Your dad would have done the same thing. Leave the rest to me." 3 days later, the gang's hideout was raided. Illegal weapons, drugs, stolen bikes. They were arrested, all of them. Daniel didn't smile when he heard the news. He didn't cheer. He just looked at Eli, who now walked freely, laughing with friends again, and he felt peace. Because the fight wasn't about fists. It was about doing what was right. The gang was gone. The town of Fairfield felt peaceful again. No more dark motorcycles rumbling near the park. No more strange men watching from corners. No more late-night threats. But inside Daniel, something had changed. He wasn't just a boy waiting for his brother anymore. He was someone who had stood up for his family, for his town, for what was right, and everyone noticed. At school, kids who barely spoke to him before now gave him respectful nods in the hallway. Even the teachers seemed to see him differently, not as the quiet boy who sat at the back of the class, but as a leader. But Daniel didn't let it get to his head. He still walked Eli to school every day, still helped their mom with groceries, still trained at Coach Reggie's gym, not to fight, but to stay sharp. Then one Friday afternoon, something unexpected happened. As he and Eli were walking home, a little girl fell off her bike ahead of them. She scraped her knees and began to cry. Her friends just stood there, unsure. Daniel walked over quickly, pulled out a small handkerchief and knelt beside her. "It's okay," he said gently. "You're strong, see? It's just a scratch." He helped her up, wiped her tears, and gave her a smile. "Now go show them how brave you are." She nodded slowly, then got back on her bike. Eli grinned. "You're like everyone's big brother now." Daniel chuckled. "That's the goal." But one night, while doing homework, a knock came at the door. Daniel opened it and blinked in surprise. It was the gang leader, Frankie, but not the way Daniel remembered. No bike, no leather jacket, just plain jeans and a hoodie. And beside him, a police officer. The officer stepped forward. "Daniel, don't be alarmed. Frankie here asked to speak with you, under my watch." Daniel glanced back at his mom, who stood behind him. She gave a slight nod. Frankie looked different, tired, softer. He scratched his head nervously. "I just wanted to say—" "I'm sorry," he muttered. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "For what exactly?" Frankie sighed. "For threatening you, your family, for everything." Daniel stayed silent. Frankie looked at the floor. "Jail. It gave me time to think. Your dad arrested me once, years ago. Didn't know he was your father. He was firm but fair." Daniel's eyes widened. Frankie continued, "And when you stood there that day, calm, brave, I saw him in you. I hated it at first, but now I respect it." Daniel didn't speak right away. He looked at Frankie's hands. They were shaking. "A bit." Finally he said, "I accept your apology. But what you did scared my little brother, and that's not okay." Frankie nodded. "I know. I'll never bother you again. Just keep being who you are." He turned and walked away, the officer behind him. Daniel stood there a while, thinking. His dad had stopped this man once. Now he had done the same. But not by force, by courage, by control. That night Daniel sat beside Eli in bed, telling him a bedtime story, one about lions and foxes, and how true strength doesn't always roar. Eli smiled sleepily. "When I grow up, I want to be like you," he whispered. Daniel touched his forehead softly. "No, Eli, be better than me." The next morning, Daniel stood under the same oak tree in the park. His black suit was gone. Just jeans, a hoodie, and his book. Peaceful. Again, but this time people noticed him differently. A mother nodded in gratitude. A group of teens waved. Even the old ice cream man offered him a free scoop. He was still just Daniel, but now he was Daniel, the protector, the quiet hero, the boy who didn't wait for trouble, but stood firm when it came, and he never forgot the lesson he learned in the hardest way. Courage isn't loud, it's quiet, patient, and sometimes it wears a smile instead of a fist.